All right, so in just hours, President-elect Donald Trump will receive even deeper proof that Russia is to blame for the hacks during our election. It's going to be a highly classified intelligence report that will go into sourcing and methods that can't be made public to everybody. But the conclusions have been clear. We saw it in Congress. We've seen it for well over a month. Will the president-elect finally accept what seems so clear to so many? Joining us now, senior advisor to President-elect Trump, Kellyanne Conway. It is a new year, and I wish you the best.
Thank you, Chris. Same to you.
So, new year, but same problem that faced you at the end of the year. You are in this bad situation where the president-elect is an outlier, not accepting the proof that Russia is behind the hacks of the election. Why does he continue to fight what is so obvious to so many?
Chris, how is it obvious? Have you seen a briefing? In other words, he's getting the briefing today, and we just were very concerned about all the leaks that happened, people running to the media rather than running to House Intelligence Committee meetings, closed-door meetings where they were invited to produce the information. Just this week, our own President Obama, received the final report. Apparently, just yesterday, you had the hearings on Capitol Hill. So the idea that somehow conclusive evidence has been out there in the public domain, provided to the president-elect, is simply not true. And the other thing that's going on here that's very disappointing to us in this building is how much people are conflating alleged Russian hacking with the actual outcome of the election. It's just nonsense.
Well,
the idea that Team Clinton is still running around, people are doing it, your network is doing it constantly, and that's what we need to push back on. The idea that there's this direct nexus between Russian hacking, which we're against any foreign government interference in our cybersecurity. Yes. Speaking of cybersecurity, did you hear the hearing yesterday? This country's cybersecurity is woefully underserved. It's a big problem that hasn't been tackled sufficiently in the last 8 years.
Let's deal with some points of pushback. First, the intelligence agency also said that disparagement is not the best way to help bolster our cybersecurity. You know what that was going towards. The idea of Clinton's people saying that the legitimacy of the election is tied to the revelation that Russia's behind the hacking is political. That's not something that the president-elect should be putting first in his priorities. And the idea that just yesterday, or only today, Kellyanne, is when you could safely say that Russia was involved is nonsense. For months, they've come out and said this.
The
president, that Russia was involved in the hacks during the election. Clapper came out in early October. That's irrelevant. See, that's where you guys are stuck.
Oh, no,
because
it's not
you
irrelevant.
see, it should be irrelevant.
No.
It's not irrelevant to you. Hold on, I let you speak, Kellyanne. Let me frame it. Let me frame it. Clapper came out in early October.
But you're not asking me a question. You're making statements.
I'm giving you context because you made conclusions, so I have to provide some context. This is not. Tell me what's an opinion. Did Clapper come out in early October and say we know it was Russia?
And what did President Obama say in response? He thought.
Did he say? That's the question. What's the answer?
He told Vladimir Putin, knock it off.
What's the answer?
What does knock it off mean?
Did Clapper come out in early October and say we know it's Russia?
But what is it? Finish the sentence. What is it that we know? That Russia is trying to interfere with the election results? Do you really think that Russia wanted Donald Trump to be elected president?
Did Clapper come out in early October and say we know Russia is behind the hacks, period, full stop?
Behind the hacks of the DNC? Is that what you mean?
Yes.
Okay. Well, no, let's complete the whole sentence so our
Can you answer it now? I'll let you complete it the way you want. Is the answer going to come?
Well, listen, he said that, and we just learned yesterday, according to CNN, a CNN report that I read in the news, that the FBI said the DNC never acceded to the FBI's very simple request to allow the FBI access.
Again, irrelevant. Irrelevant, because here's what we're talking. Here's my question.
Then why did CNN report on it?
Hey,
Chris, if it's irrelevant, why did CNN report on it?
It's irrelevant to my question, which is why won't the president-elect acknowledge what is so clear to the intelligence community, that Russia was involved in the hacks? And it seems to be
his intelligence briefing today.
He's had so much opportunity to know the answers to this. The people around him have been able to get the intelligence whenever they wanted.
Speaking of disparagement, I really believe there are those out there that are trying to who are trying to delegitimize his presidency, review the election results, and you know it. I mean,
and he's helping that by refusing to accept the obvious about the intelligence community's conclusions about Russia being behind the hacks.
Hey, Chris, we had a president of the United States in October who could have, when Mr. Clapper said what he said, could have pushed back harder, but did not. Because what was he doing? He and Hillary Clinton and all of their teams were out there absolutely believing that she was going to be the next president.
Okay.
So let's not disturb.
So shame on them. So shame on them.
Well, they politicized it. They politicized it because they didn't even understand America and what was going to happen in the election.
So shame on them. But why can't you divorce who's responsible for the hacks from the implications on the election? It seems to be creating a resistance to the intelligence community. It seems to be motivating the president-elect to disrespect our intelligence agencies, putting intelligence in quotes and saying they ducked the meeting. I guess they needed more time to put together a case. They never ducked the meeting. You know it was always scheduled to be at the end of the week. Sean Spicer said the same thing on this show. It seems like you can't divorce these two notions, and it's creating a really tough situation.
No, I can. I'm perfectly comfortable. I see you're very passionate about this, but here's
Sure I am.
Here's the deal.
Russia trying to hack during our election, being ignored by the president-elect, that's troubling.
Right. No, it's not. And
Really?
You're just making conclusions up now. Yes, you are.
Has he ever
I'm sorry,
accepted that Russia was
respectfully.
behind the hacks? He did nothing but mock the intel community.
Chris, he's not mocking. Listen, you're using words like disparagement, mock the intel community.
Clapper
Donald
used the
Trump
word
has
disparagement.
Great respect for the, and that's his opinion. And now you're giving your opinion.
No, I'm
now,
saying what he said.
Inappropriate.
I'm just telling you what Donald Trump said and wrote in tweets. Not at all. I love you, Kellyanne, and you know.
Argue with me.
Not at all.
Well, look,
I'm trying to put the facts out there because you're ducking the obvious, and I don't know why.
I'm not ducking. Hey, Chris, by the way, I'm not ducking a thing. Not my style. Here's the deal. The president-elect and all of us who work for him and the vice president-elect, I assure you, are against any foreign interference in the United States of America, including through cybersecurity, which obviously has not been a big priority for the last 8 years. Maybe that'll change. Number two, all the DNC had to do was turn over the information the FBI requested, according to, doorbell please, ring ring, and CNN report that I read. Okay, that's all they had to do. They refused to do that. We know all this because of the DNC emails.
Yes.
And the fact is, you want us to commit to a proposition because somehow to make everybody feel better. About what? Complete the sentence, because you have people on CNN
that Russia was behind the
day
hacks.
long.
You didn't even say the word Russia in the last minute and a half. You didn't. You said we're against any foreign opposition, but you didn't say Russia. You talk about the DNC. You don't talk about Russia. Why?
If I get back the floor here uninterrupted, here I'll talk about Russia to you.
Please.
Let's talk about Russia. In the last couple of days of Obama's 8 years in office, President Obama's 8 years of his presidency, all of a sudden he's going to be tough on Russia? Seriously? And I can't even say it without laughing. That's why I'm not saying Russia. I'm trying to be respectful. You expelled 35 Russian operatives after months before saying, knock it off, lad. That's all he said on our behalf.
And so that makes it okay for the president-elect to deny Russia's responsibility?
It doesn't make it okay that we've been so weak against Russia for 8 years.
Okay, that's a fair criticism, but what does that have to do with Trump not admitting what the intelligence community is clear about?
He gets his briefing today.
But he's had every reason to know. He could have gotten a briefing whenever he wanted one on this issue.
Hey, Chris,
they were out there so early.
Hey, Chris, things are stated on your network and other places all day long that aren't factual.
My friend,
and people think
I deal with you, you deal with me.
Again and again and again,
I deal with you, you deal with me. I'm just giving you a very simple question. Donald Trump.
Why is this so important to you? Why is this so motivating?
Here's why. Here's why. Because as we heard yesterday in those hearings, and as you well know, my respect for you is complete when it comes to your understanding of the issues. Cybersecurity is a big deal. Russia intervening in this election and getting away with it is a big deal. You need to be on the same page. So, the leader of me and everyone in this country saying, I don't buy it. I believe Julian Assange, intelligence, we don't really know. That's troubling because they know it was Russia. And it raises this question that I don't understand why you want to raise, which is, why would
Chris,
Trump shelter Russia? That's why I'm concerned.
Let me ask you a question. He's not sheltering Russia, and don't you say that again. He's not sheltering Russia.
How is he not?
Has the current president done vis-a-vis Russia for the last 8 years?
I don't understand how the legitimate answer to the question is to blame the current president.
No, I'm not blaming the current president. I'm asking you a question. All of a sudden, we're all frothing about Russia. I mean, what has he done? Do you think that President Obama's legacy vis-a-vis Russia is going to be one of a tough guy?
Let's say it's terrible.
Seriously?
Let's say the legacy with Obama and Russia is the worst. It couldn't be worse. How is President-elect Trump helping by ignoring Russia's role in the hacks during the election?
No, he's going to help because the Russians didn't want him elected. You know why? Because he has said very clearly during the campaign and now as president-elect that he is going to modernize our nuclear capability, that he is going to call for an increase in defense budget, that he's going to have oil and gas exploration, all of which goes against Russia's economic and military interests. He got elected, Donald Trump got elected in part because people want a tougher leader in the White House, a tougher commander-in-chief.
Well, look.
And but let me ask you a question. As two fully recovered attorneys talking to each other right now,
yes.
what's the end result here? What are the damages that you're talking about?
What are the damages that I'm talking about?
Yes.
Well,
What's the nexus? I think you want your viewers to believe that the election results, it all came down to 70,000 plus few votes in 3 states. It came down to so much more than that.
Kellyanne,
this guy got 306 electoral
Kellyanne,
votes.
look, I get why
she
you
was a
are.
terrible candidate.
I get your explanation for why you don't want to acknowledge the obvious about Russia. I'm just saying it's an interesting political calculation. If you want to keep relitigating the election, that's on you. If you want to entertain your critics that you beat in the election, that's on you. But what I'm saying, the price of doing that is to ignore something that really matters.
We won, and
you're asking me a lot of questions. I haven't gotten an answer to any of them.
We won, and that says a lot. That finishes many sentences.
To me, it finishes it completely. I'm saying that should not in any way compromise your desire to point the finger at Russia and blame them. And these intercepts that the intel agencies got with the Kremlin celebrating Trump's win somewhat go against what you just said.
Yeah, so that's ridiculous.
You don't believe the intercepts? So you don't believe that?
What I don't believe is that people are celebrating that Donald Trump won, who's going to be tougher.
Then you don't blame. Then you don't believe it because they say they have intercepts from Russian higher ups celebrating.
Here's what I really don't believe. Want to talk about what I don't believe? Here's what I don't believe. I don't believe that in October, when Clapper said what he said, that CNN didn't shut down conversation about everything else and focus just on this issue. If it's so darn important to you now, why wasn't it so important then?
Okay, so
could it have been
shame on us too.
That everybody thought the election? No, should it have been that you thought the election result was going to be different, and so it didn't matter as much, and it matters more now?
That's pure conjecture.
Because the wrong person
was elected? That's pure conjecture by you. I don't know why you want to get into any of that. I'm just saying.
Because I watched all your broadcasts.
But why?
And the road to 270, not the road to the popular vote, by the way, because there's no prize for that. The road to 270 was very clear if you watch CNN. It was just so obvious it was going to be a blowout.
I get that you feel that people are trying to steal the legitimacy of the election. But that's not my agenda.
But they can't.
My agenda is to ask you questions about. Of course they can't. That's why I don't know why you're dwelling on it. What my agenda is to ask you only about
any foreign government hacking or interfering with the United States intelligence, that's for sure. But we're now politicizing intelligence.
By whom?
By anyone.
By
anyone.
Like who?
By anyone.
But like who?
By anyone. By anyone.
Like Russia? How about Russia? Because that's who the intel agencies are dealing with right now, and that's who you're apparently ignoring. And that's what I'm asking you
And here's the problem. I'm not ignoring them at all. First of all, we have great respect for the intelligence communities. They will be here this afternoon to brief the president-elect, and he will have that briefing along with his vice president-elect and his intelligence and security advisors, and he will receive that information. But remember, the moment you mention Russian hacking and the election in the same sentence, you know what the impression is for a lot of the viewers out there. You know what's at
I do not think a political calculation should be fueling your recognition of a cyber threat of this magnitude. That's my answer to your question that you asked me a few minutes ago.
Let me ask you a question, since this is your topic. Really a very passionate topic du jour for you. Let me set right. I know. But there are a lot of other topics too, like why Minority Leader Schumer has now promised to only confirm one department head or cabinet appointee per week. Really? That's how the government functions? President Obama had 7 cabinet nominees confirmed on January 20, 2009, the day he was inaugurated. He had 5 more.
And their decisions as Democrats should be scrutinized, and they will.
13 by voice vote.
And they should be scrutinized.
He had the courtesy of having them confirmed on day one. Why? Because we as a nation must function. President George W. Bush came in through a Supreme Court decision. There were a lot of raw feelings.
Those kinds of politics get played. How about SCOTUS? How about SCOTUS with Scalia's seat? They won't even have a vote. Then they went
about
back
it.
and forth about debating it. McConnell played some kind of weird pantomime game about it. That's politics.
No.
I just thought you
No,
wanted to
the
rise
next
above
president-
that. Let me ask you something
Nope,
else
the
while I
next
have you.
president- No, you see, now you're just pontificating. Now
I'm
you're
not
giving your
pontificating.
opinion,
I'm
which
giving
I
you.
guess is acceptable.
Listen,
at CNN,
Kellyanne,
but
if
the
you
fact
don't
is
like
that
what
you
I
just
say,
talked
that's
about
on
the
you. But if
Supreme
you ask me a
Court.
question, I'm going to answer it. I'm going to give you
So are
observations.
we going to get the same
And some of them are
courtesy
negative for
that President
Democrats, some of
Obama
them are
and
negative for
President George W.
Republicans.
Bush got? Are we going
We'll
to
see.
message to Minority Leader Schumer and the Democrats today that they will in fact give confirmation hearings?
We'll see. And if they do, they should be
confirm our
scrutinized and
nominees?
criticized.
Do you not want to? What do you think is more important? The topic that you want to cover in ad infinitum, or us having a Secretary of the Treasury, Commerce, State, and Defense on day one or
I think they
close
all
to it?
matter, and I think this one goes away easily
Yeah, they
if
do.
the president-elect would accept what is so obvious to the intel community. One other question. I know you're pressed for time. Paying for the wall. This morning, the president-elect put out 2 tweets. One said that just to get it done quickly, we're going to pay for it, and then Mexico will pay us back. And then he changed it to the word later, that they'll pay us back later. And then you said this isn't coming from us, it's coming from Congress. They want to look at funding it for themselves. So assuming that's true, is that what the president-elect wants? Does he want the United States to pay for the wall?
No, the president-elect has made very clear 2 things. He's going to build the wall, and Mexico is going to pay for it. Congress, because that's where things are paid for. Congress, I guess, is investigating the possibility of paying for it to make it more speedy and then having Mexico pay for it after the fact. But that's what Congress is doing. Mr. Trump has always been very clear nothing has changed. He's building the wall. Mexico will pay for it. He ran on that. You could take that promise, and he'll keep that promise. In fact, he's already discussing ways to get it done. I mean, this is a guy who, just since he's been elected in 2 short months, Chris, is getting things done, is putting together an A-plus cabinet that even some of his detractors has credited with being a cabinet of serious people who are going to get things done.
There's a
He's
lot of
already
good
making
people
good
in
on
there.
promises. He has employers. Thank you. He has U.S. employers deciding they're not going to ship jobs over to Mexico. They're going to keep them here. That happens on a fairly regular basis now.
Jury's out on how
he's
those
talking
policies
about
will go forward.
infrastructure. Well, he's not even the president yet.
True.
But the jury's
There's
not
been a lot of
out
action.
on all the things, all the unfinished business that he's inheriting. That's
True.
very clear to us. I mean,
It's
that's
true.
obvious, and I'm happy to come back on and talk about that sometime.
You are
when
welcome
you feel like it.
any time to come on New Day.
All right.
You
I'll
know
see you
that.
Monday.
You know, whenever you want, you can even come into the studio. I'll make your coffee myself.
Thank you. I am, but I have a meeting with the president-elect momentarily, and I'm sure he's watching. So
I'm sure he is, and we appreciate his viewership. Thank you for coming on. I appreciate having
Thank
a
you.
conversation. These
Take
issues
care,
matter.
Chris.
Be well, Kellyanne.
God bless you. Bye-bye.
All right.
All right, we have a lot to discuss. That was a calorie burner. So let's get to the bottom line. We have David Drucker. He's a senior congressional correspondent for the Washington Examiner and host of the podcast